Child, y'all remember last month when they found human remains behind a house in Detroit and everybody was so hysterical, worried, and just wanting to know if it was in the Messiah's body? Well, no. This lady right here, Brandee Catrice Pierce, 41, of Detroit, is allegedly being held, waiting for extradition back to Detroit from Georgia for unaliving her 9-year-old autistic son. Now, they're alleging that this woman suffocated him, tied him up, bound him, and buried him in the backyard. Y'all watch this.
Investigating after human remains were found at a home on the city's west side.
Police are on the scene in the 19700 block of Woodingham Drive. That's just north of Outer Drive. CBS News Detroit's Walter Murphy joins us live now with more. Walter, what can you tell us?
So, yeah, like you guys mentioned, we are on the west side of Detroit right now. Outer Road is the closest large street, but it's all happening right here at this home that you see behind me. Now, there are several officers. There's also the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The FBI is also here assisting in the investigation. Now, what we know right now is that they did find human remains in the back of this house. We also know that the house was abandoned. The homeowner of the house actually hired a construction crew to come in and make some repairs to the home, and they are the ones that found the body. Now, what we also just learned from the Detroit Police Department is that they brought an excavator into the area to try to get the body out of the ground. However, they were not able to successfully get into the backyard, so they're going to have to do it by hand. Now, we do know that the body is small in stature, but they weren't able to confirm whether or not it was a adult or a child. They also couldn't confirm whether or not it was a male or a female, but again, they are having to exhume this body by hand, and they said they will be out here all night until, and the investigation into finding out who exactly does the body does belong to, that's also going to take some time. But the house, again, it was abandoned, and they said they would be out here all night, and we're going to stay out here as well. We will bring you an update at 11.
Thank you, Walter, for those updates. We'll be following the story closely.
So I wanted to bring y'all up to speed with that video from when they first found the human remains. And now we're going to jump into what is currently going on. And I'm just wondering, like, this is a 9-year-old autistic boy. Even though he's autistic, I know it's people that she has to see on a regular basis with him. Nobody discovered that this young boy was missing, not even his dad. They said they had to go find the dad and let him know that his son was unalive. None of her relatives questioned where this 9-year-old boy was, and obviously she was able to get away with this for a whole year. That baby been buried for a whole year, and his name is Zemar King III. Like, this is so sad, y'all. Let's get into it.
Now to a heartbreaking story on Detroit's west side, where a mother is charged in the murder of her 9-year-old son. Zemar King's remains were discovered in the backyard of his home on Woodingham Drive near Outer Drive in Livernois last month. We've been following this story since those remains were found, but today we learn this tragic case stretches back even further. 7 News Detroit reporter Randy Wimbley has more from police, prosecutors, and a neighbor who knew the family.
Investigators believe they've gotten to the bottom of a grim discovery at this home on the city's west side. A little boy's body was found buried behind this garage. His mother is now accused of killing him.
I want to talk about a case of a young boy named Zemar King III.
Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy levying charges against 41-year-old Brandee Pierce for the murder of her 9-year-old son.
The cause of death found by the medical examiner was smothering and neck compression.
Authorities believe it happened in October of last year. Zemar's remains were not found until January 6 of this year, buried behind a garage at the rental home on Woodingham, where Pierce lived with Zemar and her other son, said to be 3 years old.
It's alleged that she purchased a shovel. She bound him by tying his hands and feet together and dug a hole in the background of the house on Whittingham, where she had been living for a short time.
Sources tell me Pierce moved into the house in early September of 2024.
It's sad, though. It's really sad that that happened.
One neighbor who did not want to be identified recalled an encounter with Pierce back in early November. She knew something was wrong. It was a month after authorities say Zemar was murdered.
As a woman, I'm like, are you okay? She's like, yeah, and then she would stand there, and then she would walk back. She'd stand there, walk back. So maybe something was wrong with her, I don't know, or maybe she was dealing with the issue of what she did.
Sources tell me the landlord went to the home to do some maintenance 2 days before Thanksgiving and found the home vacant. Pierce fled the state to Georgia with her 3-year-old son, where Worthy says he is now in foster care. Public records show Pierce was arrested in Brookhaven, Georgia, for cruelty to children in the first degree on December 20th. Pierce was arrested again in Cobb County, Georgia, on January 10th. For possession of a controlled substance and theft. Meanwhile, here in Wayne County,
we are charging Brandee Catrice Pierce today with 1 count of murder in the first degree premeditation. Count 2 is homicide felony murder.
The Detroit Police Department works relentlessly on behalf of victims, and we are confident that there will be accountability for this.
Now, Pierce is in custody in Georgia. Investigators are working to get her extradited back here to Wayne County, where she will face those murder charges. I'm Randy Wembley, 7 News Detroit.
This woman is trying to claim that it was accidental, that they were horse playing around and he got suffocated. Now, I don't know if she's saying her and Zemar was horse playing around, because if that's the case, that's out the window. You a whole grown adult, you should know when too much pressure is being put on a child. Or if him and I believe he's 3 years old, she has another son that's 3 that she ran off with to Georgia. But like I was saying, like, this is crazy. It's more and more awareness showing on Detroit that this is a serious issue when it comes to these kids and them being unalived or missing, things like that. Like, the ball is really being dropped. It's being dropped in a lot of different states in the system. But the eye is on Detroit right now, and it's been on there for a while, since I would say like Messiah really heavy. But this is just sad. Like, nobody checked on this autistic child, and they saying that she has mental issues. So that's really like a red flag, that somebody should have been keeping tabs on her with those kids. But let's keep going.
I have stood at this podium many, many times and talked about how horrific, tragic, and shocking certain cases are. Each time thinking there are some future alleged facts that could be worse than what I'm talking about at the time. Knowing all the while, though, that there's always a worse set of facts on the horizon. Well, that day has come again. So I want to talk about a case of a young boy named Zemar King III. The alleged facts in this case are that we are announcing today. On January 6th of 2025, the Detroit Police Department was notified and summoned to a house on Whittingham in Detroit. They had been contacted by the landlord that owned that house. When he went to that house, the landlord contacted him when he went to that house to prepare it for a new tenant. That he called the police because he found a shallow grave in the backyard of the home on Whittingham. Upon arrival, the police were shown that grave where a human foot was sticking out of the ground. The foot was believed to belonged to a small child. After an extensive investigation by quite a few agencies, and the chief will talk about that in a minute, the buried body was discovered to be 9-year-old Zemar King III. That the mother of young Zemar was 41-year-old Brandee Pierce. It's alleged that she killed him, and that the cause of death found by the medical examiner was smothering and neck compression. So I want to just further go ahead and tell you what other facts about this case. It's alleged that she purchased a shovel, she bound him by tying his hands and feet together, and dug a hole in the background of the house on Whittingham, where she had been living for a short time. She then put him in this hole and covered him with dirt. That after killing her son, she and her other son, who was 3 years old, moved to Georgia, Cobb County to be exact. It was determined that this, in fact, happened sometime in October of 2024. That Zemar's mother, Brandee Pierce, is currently in Cobb County, Georgia, and we will be requesting her to be extradited back to Michigan. We are charging Brandee Catrice Pierce today with 1 count of murder in the first degree premeditation, which carries a life without parole sentence, mandatory. Count 2 is homicide felony murder. Again, the mandatory penalty is life in prison without the possibility of parole. Our 3rd count is child abuse in the first degree, life or any term of years in prison. The first degree child abuse is the felony to make out the felony murder we are alleging. Count 4 is tampering with evidence, criminal case punishable by more than 10 years in prison. And the 5th one is interfering with, concealing and interfering with the death of an individual, 5 years, of course, that being 9-year-old Zemar King. As always, this defendant is presumed innocent unless or until proven guilty. I should tell you that Judge Aaliyah Sabri of the 36th District Court authorized these charges yesterday. And since we will be requesting extradition, we will notify you all when in fact she is back in the state of Michigan. So of course there is no next day for court. Again, let me just repeat, these charges and allegations are quite serious. They're deadly, they're shocking, every platitude that you can think of. But again, Ms. Pierce is still presumed to be innocent unless or until proven guilty. So I'm going to have the Chief say a couple words to you, and then we'll answer some questions for you if you can.
Thank you, Madam Prosecutor. As Madam Prosecutor said, this case is rather shocking. In my 27-year career, I don't remember seeing anything like this, but I just want to thank, of course, Madam Prosecutor. I want to thank our law enforcement partners and everyone who helped out with this. The FBI was instrumental. Michigan State Police was instrumental in helping out as well, along with Cobb County and DeKalb County in the state of Georgia, their district attorney's office. And I just really want to express how proud I am of the hardworking men and women of the Detroit Police Department who helped bring this case to where it is today with these charges. I want to thank, of course, of our Major Crimes Division, the Commander Rebecca McKay, Captain Marcus Thurkill, Sergeant Ashley Peterson, Detective Kelly Lucy, who is here with us, Detective Lisa Johnson, and then the officer who is leading the case, Officer Isaac Yamas, and the members of the Western Squad. The Detroit Police Department works relentlessly on behalf of victims, and we are confident that there will be accountability for this. And as Madam Prosecutor said, of course, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Thank you much.
It seems to all of us who do this work on a daily basis that there's been just a large number of tragic cases that have happened to our children, worse than we have seen. So it's our hope that we don't continue to see these, but I know that's probably false hope that I'm having. Before we go any further, I want to introduce Tina Ripley, who has worked together on this case very hard. She will be trying this case. Louisa Papoulis is to her right and your left. She is the Deputy Chief of the Special Victims Unit. Kelly Gleason is to my immediate left, and she is the Chief of the Special Victims Unit. And again, if the Chief would introduce his people that are standing here, that would be helpful.
Sergeant, I'm sorry, Detective Lisa Johnson is right here. Also, officer in charge of the case, Isaac Yamas. Kelly Lucy, Detective. Ashley Peterson, Marcus Thurkill. Marcus is in the back there as well. And then Captain Rebecca McKay.
Okay. We'll take some short questions at this point, if you have any.
To get a charging decision, but any indication as to why, a possible motive in this case?
You know, I don't talk about motives at the time. Any further evidence and charging decision will come out when we go to court. So, again, we can't comment on that at this time.
Has there been any communication with Zemar's mother at all from you guys?
We did speak with his father yesterday, actually this morning, actually. So yes, we have had contact with the family, and the Detroit Police Department has had contact with the family as well.
So forgive me, I must be confused because I'm not listening close enough, so I apologize, but the relationship of the suspect to the child?
Mother.
Okay.
Yes. 41-year-old Brandee Pierce was his mother.
Okay.
And did Zemar's father live in Michigan?
He lives in this area, yes.
And was he aware of his child's death?
Again, we talked to him. I don't think he was aware until recently, but again, we did speak with him this morning.
Thank you.
And we'll be speaking with him, of course, further as time goes on.
And those are just, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, please, you got it.
Those are those are her two kids, Zemar and the 3-year-old?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Prosecutor, where's the 3-year-old right now? And what's his status? What's his condition?
Again, he's with his mother in Georgia right now, and he was, and now he's in foster care here, I believe.
Can you
Foster
provide,
care locally?
In Georgia.
Oh, okay, Georgia.
Yep.
are you able to provide any further information on the timeline of, you mentioned October, and then what,
That'll come out in court.
but in regard to how she ends up in Georgia with the other child, or with
All I can
family,
tell
or-
yeah, all I can tell you at this point in time is she left shortly after she buried the body in the backyard and went to the state of Georgia.
So the landlord call to DPD was on January 6th, correct?
The landlord call was on January 6th. The police were notified. They immediately went out to the house on Whittingham. They were shown that grave by the owner of that particular property. They saw the foot sticking out of the ground, and it went from there. The chief notified me immediately upon that discovery.
She had rented that home?
I assume she rented it. I don't know.
Madam Prosecutor, just got this from a co-worker, some indication that,
Who's talking? I can't see you.
Randy.
Oh, okay. All right.
Can you speak to this at all? I'll just read this verbatim. The source indicated yesterday that the mother claims they were horsing around and playing some sort of choking game.
I'm not going to comment on the evidence in the case.
Also, was this case file sent over to you guys more than once at all? And if so, what elements were needed to get to a charging decision?
Oh, we're not going to talk about that. Yeah. The police contact us when they have information. We talk often back and forth. And then once we get a completed investigation, we make a charging decision. Anybody else?